Hi, everybody. I'm Anthony Vargas with Sound and Communications, and I'm here with Scott Wright, president of Lifeline Video Technologies. Scott, thanks for being here with us today.
Thanks for the invitation.
So we've been talking to AV professionals just about how the COVID-19 crisis has been impacting their business. Scott, how is the situation affected your guys' day-to-day at Lifeline?
It's obviously greatly affected us in three different categories and ways. First of all, anybody that can work at home is now working remotely at home. So some of our sales team, our design team, drafting folks, programmers, they're all doing work from home. So we're doing as much remote, work as we can. There's only a couple of us actually in the office, and that's primarily to take freight and an occasional phone call, but working remotely at home, which it certainly has its degree of challenges and communication. So we're doing daily Teams meetings, so at least everyone can kind of stay up to date on all of that type of stuff. The first couple weeks of that, we were allowed in buildings, so our technicians we ended up working in pairs to try to really limit their exposure at all. And most of the buildings that we were working in were empty. They were churches, schools. So we didn't really see that as minimal risk as possible. But then Wisconsin did a safer at home plan where they really strongly recommended only essential businesses. And at that point, we chose it was just in the best interest of our installation team to strictly, not be in those buildings either. We also found with that most of those buildings that were somewhat accessible to us the first couple of weeks are no longer accessible. They've locked those down. What it has done though for us is that it's allowed us to go ahead and do some certifications with our technicians at home, do some training that is always something we've needed and we do throughout the year, but there's always those next levels that we never seem to get completed as fast as we can due to our workload being so crazy busy, where now it allows our technicians to get to that next level and be certified in a couple of the things. It's been nice with Avixa opening up some of their other training programs that they've had, other manufacturers doing it as well. So we're trying to use as much of the time as we can to continue that educational training and then staying in touch with our our employees as well as our customers. This is a major deal for our customers as well. So we try to stay in touch with those, make phone calls or emails to really each of us, our top 20 or 30 customers, just to say, we're still here, we're working from home. If you need us, please don't hesitate to get a hold of us. That extension arm from our company, we feel is just really important to let them know that we're still here.
Okay. So you mentioned, you guys are doing a lot more like design and sales work right now, anything that can be done like, remotely. And obviously there's a lot less field work going on. How has that impacted your workforce? And, what kind of plans do you have in place to sort of mitigate the effects on your workforce?
Yeah, we all of our design and sales team were keeping on because we had a lot of work in the hopper, a lot of stuff that we needed to have done. Our face-to-face contact with meetings is completely out. We've eliminated those completely, but we actually had a fair amount of work that was in that hopper for that stuff. Our technicians obviously all working from home, but our face-to-face meetings and we did have to lay off a couple of technicians, but we have an enormous amount of work contracted already. So once we're able to get back into those buildings, I mean, the minute the governor says they're releasing the safer at home and the government says it's safe to go about and eliminate the social distancing, we're going to call them back the very next day and be full bore ahead. Our other thing that we're doing is just really working as far ahead, putting job packets together for summer projects. And it is kind of interesting, a little different twist for us as some of those summer projects that, especially schools, that they were planning on doing that was kind of potentially delayed, now have really come to the forefront, and people are talking about those and signing contracts now, only because if some of those superintendents or IT people are working from home or have minimal work on their plate, it allows them to finalize a couple of projects that we normally probably wouldn't have closed until, you know, the May timeline, maybe even June, where we now actually got contracts now and can put that in the schedule for the summer.
Yeah, and you kind of in our discussion leading up to this interview, you kind of alluded to the idea that just the fact that like having that work contracted out in advance is proving to be very important. Just kind of speak a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's really important for us. We stay insanely busy because a lot of our work, again, is schools, churches, and with schools being closed, construction time of churches, and churches being a little, you know, seasonal of not being their crazy busy season, is there's a lot of work that we do in the summertime, and actually being able to lay out a little more of a calendar of how many weeks do we have work, how many weeks are things going to take, kind of putting a longer term plan in place for getting through the summer. Now, the challenge that we all have is we don't know when this is going, you know, when we can call those people back. But what we can do is start to condense our calendar and say, we have X amount of contracts, which totals X amount of installation days. We kind of can start to build a more of a pipeline, and for us is literally like 3 or 4 months of work. So as work starts coming in or opportunities start coming in, we can start to remind people that, you know, it may be towards that end of summer or, you know, a little longer term out in terms of that stuff. The other critical thing for us is we feel there's going to definitely be a shortage of product. It just makes sense, is, you know, with China being shut down for a while, everybody's cycle, you know, being off in terms of manufacturing. So what we're strongly recommending to those customers, and why we were able to close some of those sales, is getting down payments, getting those contracts now, ordering that product. We have a rather large facility, so we're ordering that product now, maybe even for projects 120 days out, just to make sure that there isn't a product on back order that, you know, kind of takes a large scale project or even small, and then one item being on back order, and then we're sunk. So we would rather have all of that product here on the shelf, paid for, job packets done, ready to roll, even if it's 90 days later. We find that that's going to be a lot better at the closeout cycle, finishing projects, pushing that up front and doing all of that work now, we think is going to be critical to our success, and also being able to keep us rolling from project to project in a much smoother fashion once this all ends.
And then
availability of products is really, I think, is going to be a challenge come summer and late summer.
Definitely a good thing to keep in mind, and not a point I've heard other people bring up. So it's a good one to raise. Has the crisis opened up any kind of any like new avenues for business for you guys, or have you been seeing like increased interest in, you know, remote working technologies and UC technology from your existing clients?
Yeah, there's been a few things open up. Streaming for churches. We do a lot of work in churches, so now with them being closed, and especially it couldn't have happened at a worse time with with Easter here. Obviously, a huge holiday season, you know, in the middle of Lent now. So it's streaming services. We have ended up, some of those bids we gave last year for streaming and camera systems that maybe got put on hold, that were already designed, that people planned on maybe buying in the summer or, you know, later in 2020, those got bumped up immediately, because once they figured out, oh wow, I can't Facebook Live standing with a phone in the back of church and actually have it intelligible in any way, shape, or form. those people got things right away. There was also some things where we had systems in place where there was a camera system already in place for maybe their video system, and they were doing some recording, but they weren't streaming. Adding literally a device or two was able to get them to stream, that we were able to get them selling something, pretty minimal and get them up and running quickly. We had a lot of those phone calls of how do I, do a super inexpensive way to web stream from home, and that's really not our wheelhouse of stuff, but we're obviously happy to answer those questions. A lot of phone calls on like public meeting spaces. All right, I've got my board meeting. How am I going to be able to web stream and Zoom or use whatever services for my entire board meeting and have it as an open meeting structure? So some of that have been extra work, and most of, I can say, the phone calls that we are receiving are rotating around either projects bid that got bumped up or all around the streaming aspect of things. So it has created some revenue. It's also created, like I said, some closed sales. It'll be very interesting because with face-to-face meetings being done, once that log of previous projects are caught up in design, what's 3 weeks going to look like without face-to-face meetings and things? It's going to be somewhat slow. So I mean, for us, if this lasts to the end of April, we lose sales in the month of April, but we basically lost a month of the year. If it starts extending into the end of May or June, then it's going to be quite challenging. What we think, or what I think is going to happen, is that basically we have to treat 2020 as an 11-month year. The month of April is basically gone. We're not going to be able to do hardly any installations of any substance, but I don't see the need and desire going away. It really doesn't affect the budgets to a lot of schools, the COVID-19 situation. So those budgets are still set. So that type of business, a lot of the church business are already in the hopper and contract. So we just kind of view 2020 as 11 months. And when we come back, we're just going to have to get ready to put things into overdrive and create it as an 11-month year. And hopefully the budget and numbers work out when it comes to the end of the year. We still expect a growth year for us financially. It's just we really have to figure the scheduling part of this stuff out depending on how long it lasts.
And a lot of great stuff there about just like how you're going to be looking forward, and how you're going to be approaching the rest of the year. And just as a parting note, do you have any kind of like final words of wisdom to leave for your fellow AV integrators who are dealing with the same situation that you guys are?
We're all in the same boat, and stay positive. My number one concern in all this is my employees. Lifeline, we're in a very solid financial position. We're successful. Me personally, I'm going to be fine in my family financially. Our goal is to stay as positive as we possibly can, stay in touch with my employees and their families, and making sure that this has as much of a minimal impact on them, not only health-wise, keeping them safe, but financially, that they can come out of this, and still be in good shape, and then have a positive spin in nature on it in a time where it's easy to see doom and gloom when you turn on the TV every night. We're all dealing with the same thing, and nobody's seen it coming. So trying to put a positive spin and stay as positive as we can. And every business, no matter whether you're in the AV industry or the restaurant industry or you name anything else, they're all dealing with this in some way, shape, or form. And it's unprecedented. Nobody knows the right answers here. None of us do. I just try to stay as entirely positive as I can, with a focus making this as minimal of a challenge and deterrent on my employees as entirely possible. So when this all is over and we come back to work, we're very well prepared. We're in place. We have a staff that's healthy and really financially, and their families in good shape. And we're ready to roll and be in a positive mind frame.
All right. Thanks a lot for your time, Scott, and we appreciate you talking to us about this difficult topic.
Thank you.